Al-Qaeda is going back into Iran and receiving training and are coming back into Iraq from Iran.
The Iranians were training Al-Qaeda.
I'm sorry.
Training extremists.
I'm sorry. The Iranians are training extremists, not Al-Qaeda.
That was John McCain with a little help from his friends correcting a mistake he made while visiting the Middle East this week.
I think it's probably just a blip, but the mistake nonetheless raises not a question about his knowledgeability. We all kind of believe that he has that. The question perhaps about his age, which is an issue. You know, he might, I mean, the feeling was not that he's a dope, didn't know his way around, but that he might have had kind of a senior moment there.
John McCain gets his Sunnis and his Shiites mixed up. Look, he's still identified with the Iraq war.
He had a bad week because of his error, but I think that he'll survive. He will be the expert on Iraq in this election, I believe.
I mean, the man has traveled all over the world and really prides himself on his relationships with foreign leaders.
But do you think, Jill, there's a danger that if, and certainly not one by itself isn't going to do it, but if you had 2 or 3 of these, that people might begin to have doubts?
Is it a stumble, or was it this talking point that he'd been using for actually a couple of weeks or over a week, where he was talking about sort of almost blurring that the enemy of Al-Qaeda and the enemy of the Shia-trained Iranians, and sort of blurring them as one enemy?
I wonder if that gaffe makes him seem more, in a way, Bush-like, because he's so got Al-Qaeda on the brain. It just sort of comes out there and just convinces people, wait, this isn't going to be a change.
Indeed, it does seem to amplify his connections to Bush and Cheney.
Even if he gets dinged on the experience stuff, oh, he says he's Mr. Experience, doesn't he know the difference between this stuff? He's got enough of that in the bank, at least with the media, that he can get away with it. I mean, the irony to this is, had either Senator Clinton or Senator Obama misspoke like that, it had been on a running loop, and it would become a big problem for a couple of days for them.
Had Barack Obama made that error, it would have been not a game ender, but it would have been very, very damaging. How damaging is it to John McCain?
Not damaging at all, really, because people say it's a given that this man knows what he's talking about. He's talking about the wrong subject. And indeed, the American people, even those who supported going into Iraq, say, look, it's just something we don't want to think about anymore. They are tired of it. We're now in our 6th year. For him to say, basically we're on course, basically this is a success, I think, A, most people disagree with that, but B, they don't want to talk about it.
Senator Graham, let's start right off with you with a prediction that you made on this program.
I'll make a prediction on your show. In a matter of weeks, we're going to have a major breakthrough in Baghdad on items of political reconciliation, the benchmarks, because the Iraqi people are putting pressure on their politicians.
Now, you went on to say that we're, quote, about to turn a corner in Iraq. Now, you just returned from Iraq again. Were you right? Yeah. Has there been a major breakthrough? Have we turned the corner in Iraq?
Oh yeah, I think so. We're a long way to go, but the big picture for me is I'm incredibly pleased with the performance of our troops and General Petraeus. There's been major political breakthroughs. Economically, oil revenues are up by 50%. Oil production has doubled. Inflation has gone from 66 to 5. Sectarian violence is down by 90%. Our casualties are way down. We got a long way to go, but I believe the surge has worked on all fronts.
We have lost over 900 dead Americans since the surge. Now, if you want to dismiss that as success, that'll be your interpretation. The fact is, in the end, all that matters is not a military tactical victory. Of course, when you flood the zone with American firepower, what you will do is you will further bog yourselves down into a situation, making the Iraqis more dependent on you, making it more difficult to get out. In the end, you're not going to be any closer to a political reconciliation. If all of this is working so well, George, then why is the Bush administration now talking about keeping brigades in there at 140,000, larger than what we had in there when the surge started? Why did General Petraeus say last week, General Petraeus, that there has not been commensurate political progress? That, in the end, is all that's going to matter anyway. What the surge was all about, George, was trying to buy time for the Iraqis. They've not used that time very well.
Bill Clinton has jumped back into the fray here. On Friday, he was quoted as saying something that the Obama campaign took as an attack on Obama's patriotism. Let's listen to that right now.
And I think it'd be a great thing if we had an election where you had 2 people who love this country and were devoted to the interests of the country, and people could actually ask themselves who's right on these issues. instead of all this other stuff that always seems to intrude itself on our politics.
The Obama campaign sent out one of its top surrogates, that's retired Air Force General Tony McPeak, alongside Obama yesterday to accuse Clinton of McCarthyism for questioning Obama's patriotism. Do you really think that's what he was trying to do?
I don't believe President Clinton was implying that.
One of the things about race in this country is that most people don't want to talk about it. It's an uncomfortable conversation. White people don't want to be reminded of their past sins, and they don't want to have it. And that was almost the subtle message that I was receiving, I thought, when President Clinton said that, which was, you know what, we won't have to have that conversation. We won't have to have that debate. We can just have this debate, a normal debate on the issues.
Bill Clinton was saying what a lot of us feel. We wish the issues of race and all of this other stuff would be pushed to the background so we could have a discussion of who's got the most experience, who's got the best health care plan, who's got the best plan for the economy. And instead, they launched this all-out attack trying to take an inference out of President Clinton's words that no fair person could take.
Oh, it was definitely a dig, and it is part of what has to be the strategy for Hillary Clinton. What Bill Clinton tried to do was do it in as subtle a fashion as he could. He didn't say Barack Obama went to sermons by Reverend Wright that were unpatriotic, but he tried to set up the elements to get the voters to remember that.
Of course, the idea that President Clinton, who's been a distraction for his wife's campaign this whole time, is somehow saying, oh, this won't be a campaign with distractions to it, is kind of amusing.
The point here, Chris, is that the campaign has gotten too negative. This has to stop. This, I believe, the sooner we end this race, and I'm not suggesting anybody get out, but maybe after the remaining primaries, the 10 primaries that are going to be very important in the days ahead, the Democrats come together and look at who's ahead when it comes to delegates, when it comes to the popular votes, the number of states, and I just feel the time has come to come together behind a candidate.
And a lot of people think the really big news this week was the fact that Michigan is now following Florida in deciding not to hold a revote. Given all of that, isn't it impossible now for Clinton to beat Obama in the popular vote and the pledged delegates when all the voting is done in early June?
Well, sure. And again, it shows
Sure, you're saying it's impossible.
It's very difficult.